Well, it's cooled down a little bit now, and earlier on it was blazing hot. I had a bit of a problem because I needed a cold drink, and the nearest shop is about 1 kilometre away. I'm in the wilderness of Chatuchak here, and when I got to the shop, it was out of action. It wasn't open, but it wasn't closed. The old lady who owns it was sitting at the entrance asleep, so it was a little bit awkward. I had to exercise a bit of Kreng Jai, so I ended up disappearing for a couple of hours. Anyway, I'm back, and this got me thinking actually. Your patience and mental health resolve get tested on a daily basis by such little things. And when you've been here long enough, you build up a level of expectation in your daily life of how things are. And you don't really let it bother you. You might say things like, you know, TIT, this is Thailand. I think it was Bernard Trinku coined that phrase. And you don't give such trivial matters a second thought. You just get on with life. But there are also people who've lived here for years that don't have that mental health resolve and patience, and they let these things piss them off on a daily basis, and it shapes their whole existence here in Thailand. Despite being here for years, they still have this cynical outlook on the country and its people, almost to the point where they're always bitter. And these are the people you don't want to get in an argument with, either in person or especially on social media, because you won't win. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with complaining. I used to do it all the time, and when I did, I was very tactical, complimentary, and smiled a lot at the same time. And generally it didn't get me anywhere, so nowadays I just shut up and keep it to myself. I do tend to avoid the Thailand apologists as well. These are the type of people who say things like, well, if you don't like it here, you know where the airport is, go back to your own country. These people are complete idiots. This is often the last ride that many people take before flying out of Bangkok, often for good. A quick glimpse of the eastern suburbs before checking in at an airport so depressing it makes Don Mueang feel like a theme park.
Next station, Suvarnabhumi station.
Maybe you're thinking, how can an airport like this be depressing? It's still almost new. All that state-of-the-art technology surrounding you, magnificent architecture, natural light. That probably had something to do with it, natural light, because I was usually leaving on an early morning flight, hungover or still drunk, and that natural light does not help that feeling at all. I used to prefer Don Mueang Airport because it's a lot gloomier and the lights are down lower in there, less natural light, and that suited the mood I was in when I was leaving Thailand, which usually was not a very good mood. The depression for me used to really hit home not long after takeoff. I'd be looking out the window down at Bangkok getting smaller and smaller, and I'd just be wishing I could have even just another 24 hours down there amongst the traffic, the smells, the chaos and the heat. And I'd look around the plane and I knew I wasn't the only one who felt like this. And so for the rest of the flight I'd be plotting and planning my next trip back to Thailand. And I think it's moments like that that get people questioning their whole existence. And they might think to themselves, well, what have I got to lose? What if I try my luck in Thailand? I love visiting the country, but I hate leaving. Most of all, I hate that depressive feeling on the flight back. And a lot of people move long term on the strength of that, with mixed results. Since the airport opened, there have been over a dozen suicides by foreigners here, and some people say it's because the airport is cursed with evil spirits due to its past as an ancient burial ground. Anyway, I read into some of the suicides, and there were some tragic stories of lost souls, depression, alcoholism, guys who had nothing to go back home to, who just didn't want to leave Thailand. And there was one case where a guy was prevented from jumping, arrested, taken into the police station. He managed to convince the police after a while that he was okay and that could he go out and have a cigarette. And he didn't go and smoke, he actually went and jumped and succeeded in ending his own life. So some tragic stories at Suvarnabhumi Airport. Okay, so it goes without saying, doesn't it? When you move to a new country, it's not going to be easy to forge new friendships, build new bridges, and in many cases, it's just like starting all over again. You're going to be socialising with people from different backgrounds, different walks of life, with different tastes, different nationalities, and in many cases, people you don't even like. And of course, it's all about looking good, not just your appearance, but what they call keeping up appearances, expat face. Now, I know a lot of expats like to think that doesn't really exist, but I saw a poll on Twitter that says 70% of foreigners, when they see another foreigner, will mentally profile them, which is pretty scary. And all this socialising you're doing, trying to build connections and make new friends, does it revolve around nightlife, bars and drinking? Because after all, it was those three things that attracted a lot of foreigners to Thailand in the first place, and there can be negative consequences of burning the candle at both ends. But living this kind of a lifestyle day after day, it's easy to lose focus and fall into bad habits like alcoholism, for example. But I'm not trying to preach and tell people how to live their lives. That is not the reason why I made the video. I just wanted to point out some of the obvious consequences like alcoholism, drug addiction, mental health issues, physical health issues, low self-esteem, mood swings, always feeling on the edge, delusions, even suicide. There's a lot of people going stir crazy out there. There is that tired old cliche, isn't there, that says all foreigners arriving in Thailand from abroad must be multimillionaires. Now, as you know, some sectors of society still subscribe to that, but I think in general that notion has all but evaporated. But if you think back, say, 20 years ago, that was pretty much still set in stone, and a lot of foreigners were seen as walking ATMs or Mr. Moneybags. And you can't really blame them for thinking like that, because they'd seen foreigners on holiday in Thailand spending what looked like endless amounts of cash, drinking like fish, tipping all over the place, enjoying the hospitality. And some of those foreigners went on to move to Thailand later on and live very fulfilling lives. But there was also a few foreigners whose dreams of living in Thailand didn't quite work out the way they expected it to. And there's probably a lot of reasons why things didn't quite work out for them living in Thailand. The list is endless. Incompatible relationships, maybe they got scammed, or they just didn't get along with the locals, they didn't like the food, or simply ran out of money. I used to read a lot of stories online on the old-fashioned internet forums about successes and failures of expats moving to Thailand. And it was always these stories of failure that got a lot more people excited. These stories got a lot more clicks and replies, and it was like people were almost enjoying the misery these people went through. And people would get into arguments and spats online, and these arguments would usually end when someone corrected the other one's grammar. By the way, confession is every Saturday morning.